All right. Thank you for joining us today on the Connections with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Vallona, CEO and Director of CSG Inc., a consulting firm here in Los Angeles. And today's guest, Dr. Drew Pensky. Thank you for joining us, Doctor. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate the time. It's been kind of crazy trying to connect with you lately. It just seems like you're all over the map lately. And I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Sure, pleasure.
So I don't know if people ought to know about this. I'm just gonna do something different what I normally don't do, but I just want to talk to you about your life. Really crazy. So started out in like early career, and you were on a show. A lot of people don't know this, but you were on Wheel of Fortune.
Oh my God.
How was that?
I wish you wouldn't take that out. I was a guest on the Ellen Show a few years ago, and she sprung that on me.
Yeah.
Of that, and they actually had to go back into the Merv Griffin vaults to pull it out. And I always lived in fear that somebody would find that tape. And Ellen goes, well, "What are you feeling? What do you think?" And I go, I'm thinking, face your fears. It's not that bad. It's humiliating, but not terrible.
But why did you want to get on that show for a reason? Were you a fan of that show or?
No, my friend, a good friend of mine went on and won a car. And I was like, holy shit, if he can do that, I could do that. So I worked my way on and then just got creamed by the wheel.
Oh my God.
Terrible.
We play it here at the house all the time on the Wii. So
it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was interesting. I'd never been exposed to any of that. I was just literally, I was going to go get a car. That's what my goal was. And wiped out.
Yeah. I mean, if you go through Wikipedia, it has all these great facts about you. And I don't know if you ever looked at it lately, but it's pretty impressive. I mean, starting off, of course, with the Wheel of Fortune, and then goes on into a radio segment show, which later became probably one of the longest running television or radio shows in your career, which is Loveline. It's then a myriad of different types of projects, Celebrity Doctor Rehab, Sober House, Sober Living, Addiction Stories, Sex Rehab, all the teen shows. I mean, it's incredible how you became this doctor, right? And then you became this more of a television radio personality. Was it always that way for you? Did you want that, or is that just something that just happened?
No, it happened. I just, there's an entrepreneurial lesson in here too. I just always said yes to everything. I would just say yes. I no matter what it was, I go, all right, let's go explore that. Let's see what that is. I don't know. But I always was very reluctant to think of myself as somebody in the media. I always told them I'll do the media, but leave me alone to practice medicine. Just you can't interfere with medicine.
Right.
And even I remember when we were doing Loveline, the TV show, I said, all right, we can do this, but it's got to be Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon because that's all I got. And I'd see patients in the morning, I go to the hospital, and then in the afternoon we do shows. And we were so naive back then. We would do like 6 shows in a day. We just change our clothes, do another show, change our clothes, do another show. we didn't know that was a lot of television. It seemed pretty easy to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, so you still have a current practice in Pasadena, where you see patients.
Yeah.
So you're not just a personality in television and radio. You actually still practice medicine.
Yeah. I don't do the workaholic stuff I did for decades. I used to have like 4 different things going at once. I was running medical services in a psychiatric hospital. I was running addiction services in the psychiatric hospital. I had a hospital medical practice that included in critical care. I did a lot of critical care work. And then I had an outpatient medical practice. And so I would, get up at 5 a.m. and see the hospital patients. Then I'd see the outpatients from 8 to 2. And then from 2 to 10, I'd be at the psychiatric hospital.
That's incredible. I mean, how did you find the time to do all that? I mean, early in your career,
you just heard it. I was 5 a.m. to 10 at night. And that was 7 days a week. And I had a nursing home practice too at the same time. I had to see hundreds, well, it was hundreds of nursing homes, well, 100 nursing home patients at one point. And I'd have to squeeze that in on the weekend somewhere.
That's crazy. So when did you first get your medical license?
License 85.
And how old were you then?
26.
Nice. Wow. And you just celebrated a birthday.
62.
Wow. Happy birthday, fellow Virgo. I was on the 5th.
Oh, happy birthday right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I sent you a little GIF in your text message.
I am really, really not a text person. I hate texting.
You do.
You understand? Yeah, I consider anything I carry with me an emergency instrument. Like if something comes through here, it's an emergency. Stop what you're doing and
okay.
It's like a beep. I was had on beeper for so many years, and then a digital beeper that if you're coming through to me, I'm like Pavlov. I must do it, and I'm chasing things all day long that people push through.
Okay, I get it. I get it. For the younger generation listening to the show, the beeper that Dr. Jupinski is talking about is it the medical beeper, or is it actually the pack bell beepers that we used to have before cell phones, or both?
I had all different kinds of beepers. I had a hospital beeper that would go beep 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 beep, and a voice would come over the phone. I had a beeper that I'd have to call an exchange to get the message. Then I had a beeper that would have a message, specifically on it. But that's if anybody's getting to me directly in real time, I just consider that an emergency.
Oh, I see. I just thought you didn't like me as much because it took forever.
I'm busy trying to attend to things.
Well, I going through the myriad of current shows and topics, just to name a few. And you can find all this stuff out on DrDrew.com, where you can find Dr. Drew for all of his current projects and to reach out to him for some really important stuff. But currently, it's Ask Dr. Drew podcast, Dose of Drew, Dr. Drew After Dark, Adam Carolla and the Drew podcast.
That's all. You just pushed a whole bunch of them together. So if I do a streaming show every day,
right,
and that's an hour and a half with guests typically. One day a week at least we do with phone calls. That's the Ask Drew one. The other is the Dose. Then I have a series of podcasts. Adam and I are still together. We do a podcast most days. I have a podcast by myself at his network, and then I have a podcast at your mom's house with Christina P. called After Dark.
That's crazy. And tell us about the Swole Patrol. Is that still going on?
Not going.
Not going.
That's your program. There's lots, and the date. What was the other one? The Weekly Infusion. We stopped doing that.
Oh yeah, that was the podcast that I was on. So
yeah, we stopped doing that with we did the Bob Forrest one. We stopped that too.
Okay, and you still are on KABC doing your midday show?
Yeah, I did that show for 6 years. I'm no longer at KABC.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, we need to update some of the stuff on Wikipedia and your website. That's good. Well, we had it's kind of a tough day, as you know, being that we're actually recording this podcast on September 11th, and it's a sad day for America. Drew, what was it like for you on that day? Do you know exactly what happened and where you were and what you were feeling?
Oh yeah, I remember it vividly. I was listening. I woke up to Ralph Garman on the radio because I used to have a clock radio that was set to K-Rock and is a local Los Angeles station here. And Ralph came on. The first thing we heard was, "You may not have heard, but a plane has hit the World Trade Center." And my wife and I flew out of bed and went downstairs. And at that point, it looked like it had been a small plane that had sort of been an accident that had hit the first tower. And a lot of misinformation, a lot of unclarity about what was going on. We used to have this TV down by our fireplace, really like a tube television. We were watching on. Younger people wouldn't even know what I'm talking about anymore. But it was a television with a tube.
Yeah.
And we were there sort of having breakfast and stuff. And the kids were kind of watching this, and they seemed kind of confused. They were in third grade. And I was talking to one of my best friends on this when the second plane hit, And he kept going to me. He goes, "Man, they're going down. They're going down." I go, "What are you talking about?" I go, "We're going to fix these things. There's a big impact thing. We're going to go repair it." He goes, "No, they're toast. They're going down." And while he was saying that, the first one went, and I was sort of out of body at that point. Could not believe it. And I thought, "Oh, this is." I got angry. I got super duper angry. And I remember we had to call the school, or the kids going to school or not. And our school elected to have a normal day. And I remember talking to the teacher when I got there, and and I remember when I piled the kids into the car to go to school, I just said, "You have to remember this day, because things are no longer the same. This changes the world. This changes where we are, and things are now different."
Yeah.
And they all did not remember me saying that. But I asked them, please not to forget, and they forgot. But I remember saying that and just thinking, this is how this generation is going to deal with this. I don't know. And I remember I was on the Craig Ferguson show that night, just saying, I can't believe this. We're not going to prevail through this. We're going to figure out a way to be okay. And it's funny, I feel the same way about coronavirus and all the other BS we're dealing with now. But this has been so protracted this time. And here we are, remembering September 11th, while we are dealing with something equally as problematic. The problem with this go round is I think I and most people are experiencing crisis fatigue. This is so drawn out and so unpleasant. We're just tired of it. And crisis fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah, I heard you on, I think it was on Fox, either last night or a day ago, with Catherine Barger, about the reversal of canceling Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
With who's your co-host on Fox again?
Alex Michelson.
I'm sorry?
Alex Michelson.
Alex, yes. And we get into that in a second, but the 9/11, it was insane, because I was working for Young's Market, and I was selling booze, and I had this route that went over Los Angeles. And I remember my wife at the time said, "Did you see the news?" And we just had no idea what was going on, and I started to get scared, and shaking. I called my boss and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "Get to work, hurry up." And I said, "Well, what?" He goes, "I don't care. These orders have to keep coming. People need their booze." And I was just like, oh my God. So I remember eerily just driving super slow on the freeway and going into Calabasas to do my job, to sell booze. And nobody was in the store. People were home. It was like really scary.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, that changed for me. As you know, what you don't know, the listeners, is that my oldest brother, Jerry, is a retired law enforcement, and my other brother, David, is retirement from the Marine Corps. So they both were on high alert, and it was very scary. So, and today we just remember those that have fallen in the horrible tragedy, and hopefully we can teach and instill that we never will forget about what happened going forward. Yeah, it's crazy to remember all this stuff. So going forward, we have a little special guest. Yeah, Sebastian's joined the crew. We're homeschooling today, everybody. So there's Sebastian.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does Sebastian go back to school sometime?
Sebastian is, we're just doing the homeschooling for now, and they're trying to do the blended, but they keep saying yes and then no. So I don't think it's going to happen. But, I guess safer for now until we figure out what's happening. And, that's a great segue. I mean, when you're talking about the emotional and the crisis of being told you can't do anything, can you kind of elaborate about that? Because when you were talking with Alex and County Supervisor Barger, you were like really adamant about saying, "Hey, this is the latest thing." So,
yeah.
What do you? Yeah.
Well, we've seen all the mental health parameters get worse. So, depression, suicide at four times what they were last year. Suicide up, opiate overdose up, substance use up, alcohol deaths up, everything up. And we've known it, we've watched it through this whole lockdown. And it was clear that the people making decisions were not paying attention to the health of the population. They're only paying attention to this illness, which is not their job.
Yeah.
But okay. And now it's all falling under kind of an umbrella of a term called crisis fatigue. And as soon as I say it, everyone will know what I'm talking about because we're all feeling it. And unfortunately, when you feel powerless and helpless and have no sense of normalcy long enough, you get a certain amount of dread and fatigue, and then you start getting more accelerating mental health issues. They have to pay attention to this. And we do not know the full impact that young people are feeling the same thing, except they don't have a context. They're 8 or 10 years old or 12 years old, and they're told their family's going to die if they go outside, or if they go outside, if they don't wear a mask. I mean, this is going to have untold impact on their development. And then we're withholding them from school where they can have at least an outlet and continue their development and regulate themselves. No, they'll give them none of that. So this is very, very concerning. And I see almost no attention being paid to this. I know the federal government is about to launch a big initiative. They're concerned, but I don't see any county health officials, which are the ones actually responsible for this, looking out for it.
Well, back I think a few years ago, during another type of another virus that outbroke, you had contracted H1.
H1N1, yeah.
And how did you do with that?
Oh, it almost killed me.
Okay.
That one killed 600,000 people worldwide, and it killed primarily 20 to 40-year-olds. So it was a much more, it killed healthy people. It did not kill old people. And so it really was a very serious thing. And there was somewhere near 1 billion cases worldwide. And yet my point has always been, you barely knew that happened. You don't even know that. I know it happened because I got it. But the rest of you don't know that happened. And
I had no idea.
Very similar outbreak. And this outbreak we're ending the world for, and the other, you don't even know it happened. So it seems like there should be some middle ground in here that we could get into. But in any event, I was so sick with that my wife at the end of it said, that wasn't normal. Something's wrong with you. And you're going to get a physical. And I'm like, I've got my cardiologist. I got my this. I got my specialist. And you go, okay, I'll get a physical. That's when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Oh, wow. So that was something that was caught due to the fact that you got the illness.
Right. It probably actually had nothing to do with the illness, but it prompted my wife to get me in. And I had some evaluations where some really good judgment was applied, and they made the diagnosis.
Well, I'm glad that your wife was able to drag you back for testing. I know that men in general, we're very, very particular, and we know everything. We're fine. We're fine. Throw some dirt on it. But
we always think if it's something, it'll show itself. If it's really bad, I'll know it. Otherwise, forget it.
Right. So, when you talk about your experience with this, with these viruses over the years of your life, in the beginning, you had basically had this point of view that you're talking about now, that you were, chastised for. It wasn't, you weren't trying to create a panic, and you weren't trying to mislead anybody.
I could see the panic. I could see the panic coming. And I was trying to reduce that because I felt like we were that non-medical people were going to force a reaction out of panic that was going to hurt more people than the virus itself. And that's where we are. That's what's happened.
So then let me ask you this.
Not only do we have the mental health consequences, we have this other problem where people have been delaying their medical care out of fear of COVID. And now we have people coming in with advanced diseases of all type and are dying because we don't get these things early enough.
Sure. So going back to earlier in the year, you were pretty much, told that you were wrong. I would imagine that someone in your reputation as a doctor and being on TV and on radio, people challenge you all the time and tell you that you're wrong. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're just some stupid guy that plays a doctor on TV. But it prompted something I'd never seen from you before, which was an apology about how you expressed, I guess not the fear, but the severity of this disease or illness.
I am happy to apologize where I get things wrong. I have no problem with that. I got 2 things wrong. I got the infectivity wrong,
Okay.
and I got the more serious manifestations in at-risk individuals. So I got the ferociousness wrong in a small population, and the general infectivity I got kind of wrong. I didn't get wrong. I didn't get right. I didn't go into what I got right. What I got right was, for the vast majority of cases, it's the flu.
Well, that
For
was
the
my next. That was my next question. I'm going to say, what did you get right? So
Yeah, vast majority of cases, it's the flu, and it's not that different from H1N1. So why are we having such a huge reaction?
yeah.
Those were the two. Those were the things I was pushing, but I was pushing it without also saying this is very infectious. We have to wear a mask. I didn't know that, and also the ferociousness in certain populations.
But let me ask you this: Why did you feel you needed to apologize, Dr. Drew?
Mostly with my kids, it demanded it. They were like, "You have to apologize." I'm like, "Okay, I'll apologize. I got it wrong, and I'll be happy to do that." And there was quite a shitstorm going, and I've always felt that if you make a mistake, step up quick and admit it. And I have no problem with that.
Okay. And now, what are you feeling about all this? Because now we're starting to get some data because it's been 6 months. Do you feel that you were on point still with some changes with the data? Because Dr. Fauci always says, well, we just didn't have the data. That's why I said, don't do that.
Yeah.
So,
and I always said, just listen to Fauci. I punctuated every one of my positions with, I've been around Fauci for 35 years. He knows what he's talking about. He'll get us through this. Because I knew I'd get stuff wrong, but I knew that he would take a very conservative position that would be the right position, maybe excessive, but okay, I know he'll get us through this. So just listen to him. Don't worry about me. Listen to him. And I said that every time I commented. And I said it in a particular way too. I said, let him be your North Star, because he's always been my North Star. I've always just followed him.
But does he Drew? Does he have that ability to be right? Can he get stuff wrong too?
I didn't say get us through this. I didn't say. Of course, he's not always going to be right. Nobody was going to be 100% right. Nobody was 100% right. Nobody. I mean, Nancy Pelosi stood in Chinatown and told people to come to Chinatown as the thing was going. Yeah. That was wrong. Trump was saying wrong stuff. There was many people said wrong things. Fauci said some wrong things. Birx said some wrong things. Fauci said don't wear masks. And you know why he said don't wear masks? For the very reason we're getting into right now, is that we, in my generation, we were always trained that viruses are transmitted on the hands, really important viruses. And so the idea of messing with a mask on your face, we didn't want that. We were, and now we're heading into influenza season where the mask is going to go against us on flu. So get your flu shot. We didn't know that it was almost exclusively transmitted in droplet in the air.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Everybody got that wrong because we just didn't know it.
I mean, I've been listening to you for a while, and other commentators and other doctors, and it's very true. It seems very confusing about which way to do it and how to go about it.
That's the other thing. This is again part of what I was pushing back up at the beginning. I kept telling the press to shut up, because the way medicine is a collaborative process. To have it forming into headlines doesn't make any sense. We have an experience. We train on cases. We read literature constantly, so we know the landscape of literature for our field. Then when a particular thing comes along, we read deep in a particular area, and we're able to contextualize and analyze that literature in the context of all that's out there, because we're reading all of it. And we know how to analyze this data. Then we go, I've reached a conclusion, and then we go collaborate with our peers. We know we will interact with peers who will have a different opinion. And together, amongst ourselves, we'll reach the truth, or at least clinical efficacy, to the best of our ability. And this idea that we don't know what we're talking about because we go from one thing to the next. That's how medical science is done. That's how it is done. It's a collaborative process built on the literature that you have a wide understanding of, that gets you moving in a positive direction on behalf of patients.
Right. So that last whole dissertation is just so foreign to a lot of us. We don't understand the medical speak, and we understand what you're trying to tell us, but at the same time, it's terrifying. I mean, just listening to you is just like, it's hard to understand it. It's Chinese to me. And it's like, what do we do? And I guess the next great question for you is, Drew, is like, how do you really feel about all this today? With all of the confusion.
I feel like that's actually a really good question. I feel like we need to find our best spot, a balanced spot where we live with the virus with not minimal growth of the virus and minimizing harm. So the public health officials seem to think we're going to wipe out the virus or it's going to go away or something. It's not going away, not going away. And so we need to find that spot where there's no acceleration in the transmission, that we get to as deep a baseline as possible, and we start to live our lives so we don't have all these other consequences that are inevitable from these extreme measures they're taking to control this one illness. And we can live with this. We can do it. It's not we're going to have to, because that's how it's going to be. Even when there's a vaccine, the virus is still going to be around a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what a lot of people are saying. This is just another form of a flu virus, and we're going to have to live with it. And we're going to have to let the professionals get our vaccines, and we're going to have to, take our vaccines, but not necessarily force or mandate it. I mean, I was listening to your last podcast about how you said California was draconian in its measures of shutting us down versus the rest of the United States.
It is. When I go around the country, I can't believe how different it is, and how different the population is relating to their government. This feels like a concentration camp. That's obviously hyperbole, but it feels like it when you go somewhere else where the relationship with the government is encouraging. This is like, we're going to get you. We're going to shut you down. It's always, we're going to shut you down. Behave yourself. We're going to shut you down. That's why people go, screw it, I'm not going to wear a mask.
Well, so that's another great question. I mean, I know you're not a politician, and I know you're not spreading your viewpoints, right or left wing, whatever. But why is that, I wonder, in the state of California where we live? Why? Or is it just
bad leadership? That's all I see. It doesn't matter which side you're on. If you're bad leadership, it's bad leadership, and it's bad health messaging. It's what I've been doing my whole life. That's what Loveline was. It was, how do you get people it was during the AIDS epidemic, is why I went on the radio. That's why I was on the radio.
Yeah.
Anthony Fauci said, you young physicians, get out there and change the behavior. I went, okay, I'm going to do it. And what I learned by doing that was that the way to change behavior is have a narrative, a story arc, a case.
Yep.
It needs to be relatable to the population you're trying to reach, and you need some entertainment value. That's it. You don't have Barbara Ferrer, who's our LA County health official, going, today 3 souls were lost to coronavirus. Yeah, it's horrible. We don't need that. We're feeling bad enough. We get it. It's awful. Give us a story where the proper behavior resulted in a good outcome. That's what we need to hear. Lots of that.
That's funny. It's true. I mean, you turn on any channel, it's all about doom and gloom. There's no new path. There's no hey,
it's bad.
It's scary. That's why I don't
have had been impacted in bad ways, and it's just
And you're saying, you're also saying now that because of that messaging, now we have this crisis, this mental crisis.
Well, we have the mental crisis because A, there's horrible messaging, and B, there's no attending to the consequence of all the locking down. But the really bad part of the bad messaging is the resistance to the mask. Because then you have a population that goes, they're hypocrites, I don't like them, I don't want to listen to them anymore, I'm not going to wear a mask. And I've been begging people, I've been saying, not the mask. So do something else. Open your business, but wear the mask, because we know it works. It really works. It's why we're doing such a great job right now. Just don't draw the line at the mask. Choose something else.
Yeah.
Do something. Civil disobedience. Yes. Go to Halloween. Go trick or treating. They tried to close our Halloween down in LA County. Go do that.
Yeah. What was that about where our county supervisor felt it necessary to reverse that? Was it because she said on this interview, I have a clip on it, but she said, I don't know who leaked that, but that's not what is really the truth.
Because she knew it was insane. Because she knew it was too far. It's a bridge too far. And she knew that even they knew they would lose everybody completely if they tried to pull that one. That it made no sense.
Right. So
it seems draconian. It seems excessive. It seems capricious. It seems ridiculous to any human looking at it.
Yeah, this your leadership in a brand new woke society. So
Yeah, yeah.
you're right. I don't think everybody's looking at the cause and the effect and how bad it can be if we create this pandemonium
Well,
style
right.
of.
And then you have all the unrest and all the unpleasantness that's going on in the streets and stuff, and that's just adding to the crisis fatigue and adding to the dysregulation we're feeling
Mm.
emotionally, and adding to people reaching for bottles and pills and everything else.
Are you talking about the current riots in the US?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And
So I
I sort of put that all under, the political strife. It's
well,
everywhere.
well, the thing is that I just started getting into a knowledge of politics this last March. One of my closest friends, Susie, she goes, I'm just telling you to understand what's going on around. And I had to come out of this bubble because I live in the Batten disease bubble, of course, where I'm trying to fix Sebastian, trying to get him a cure for Batten disease research and all that good stuff, which you've helped me do that with your show. Thank you so much again. But I started to really look at both sides of the coin, and I've had both sides of the leadership endorse Batten disease research lately with Assemblywoman Christy Smith, as well as Congressman Mike Garcia, and on and on and on. Of course, with the Senate passing SRJ 25, where we have Batten disease in California now, thanks to Senator Scott Wilk. So, but I started really looking at it, and I'm blown away at how it's just gotten so crazy out there,
Crazy,
and
crazy.
and how people, like you said, that I know, are drinking and drugging, and they're going out there and they're saying, I don't give a fuck anymore. So how can when you say we have to help people change that behavior, how do you change that behavior in the people that are, I don't give a fuck anymore because you're telling me I can't do anything, so I'm going to go do it anyway? How do you
Right.
stop that? How do you do that?
You change your leadership style, or you change your leaders, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a direct response to them being inconsistent, hypocritical, excessive, capricious. People don't respond well to that stuff,
No.
particularly in their health messaging, and it's and they form their own opinions, and they look at it and they go, this is not. Why are they doing this? It doesn't make sense, and so they of course push back.
Right. So I mean, the one of the topics, one of my other interviews was people just want rational leadership.
Yes, I
And
listen. On my After Dark show, we formed a new movement called the Rational Revolution. Rational Revolution. Yeah, yeah,
how do we join?
yeah. Join us. We're gonna have a T-shirt. We're gonna have profiles of us look like Lenin.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So, but to your cause and your effect. Yeah, I, for one, when I started to learn about what's happening, I am confused. I don't believe it. I don't want to do it. And you're not going to take away my freedoms and my liberty. So
Right.
I don't really understand and all that stuff. But then the worst thing happens to me in my life when my father passed away from it,
Right.
from the coronavirus. And you were one of the people helping my father, and I appreciate that. And I'm hearing all this stuff about the ventilators and how they're the cause of the deaths and all that other stuff, and the money that the hospitals are making on the COVID, on the death certificates, and it's just, boy oh boy, so much effing noise, man.
Oh, yeah.
And
So,
it's
so let me frame those things for you. In the fog of war, in the early stages of the pandemic, we did not fully know how to manage the cytokine storm. So there's a viral phase of the illness, which is the flu, and there's this post-flu piece that some at-risk people get, and particularly elderly folks, where the cytokine system activates and essentially the inflammation attacks all the organs, and that's how you get ARDS and kidney failure and all these things. And if you have certain risk factors, the higher the probability and the more inflammatory that reaction is. Now we know Decadron works for that. We know delaying the ventilator is an important thing for that. We know that some of these cytokine modulators, the RANTE system, the IL-6 inhibitors, maybe the antiviral medicines in the early states, the remdesivir, sometimes hydroxychloroquine early on. We kind of know how to use these things now in a way that have improved outcomes. So things are better. So that was that. So that's the ventilator piece. Was not that ventilators were causing the problem. It's just we didn't quite know the timing of when to get people on to optimize their ability to get through this and reduce the damage to the lung. But when somebody's sitting there not breathing, I mean, you don't have a lot of choices. So there's that. Now, as far as the hospital and COVID, the hospitals were given a weird, a distorted motivation, which is essentially because the government asked them to shut down to all other medical care and just take COVID patients. A COVID diagnosis was more highly reimbursed than it normally would be in order to keep the hospitals open. The hospitals would have closed had they not done this. All of their usual revenue sources, all the procedures, all this, everything else was shut down, just COVID. So there was a distorted motivation for sure to put COVID on everything, but it was just to get by. It was not to be highly, it was not as though they were making a lot of money. They were just trying to keep their doors open until the government allowed them to bring in more cases. So, and then how we, how we fill out death certificates in this country is such a mess. It's such a mess, and it's bearing out in terms of how we understand the data amongst the people that do succumb to this illness. It's all a mess right now.
Yeah, that's a total mess. I miss my dad, and I know you and him were friends, and I was going back in the history of the addiction side of your life and how you help others. I was trying to put it together. When did you meet Chuck and Michelle Valona?
I tried to figure that the other day too.
It was Los Encinas days, right? Yep.
Yeah. It was like somewhere between like 89 and 93, something like in there. Somewhere.
Yeah. So for the listeners, my parents got sober in early 70s, and we came across DrDrew when I was a teenager. I had no idea who you were, but I listened to your show. It was really odd. I was listening to Loveline because I would just laugh through all the sexual shit. And then come to find out that you and my mom were buddies, and she had said, "Oh, it's always been Los Encinas." And so those days in your recovery, when you were helping others, was that a specialty in your field? I mean, you have a regular doctor's license and an MD to practice medicine. Was that your specialty of addiction?
No. There was no specialty back then.
Okay.
So here's, you don't know how that happened to me. So I'm an internist. Like I said, I was doing critical care. I was going to be a cardiologist.
Okay.
And I started moonlighting at Los Encinas, taking care of the medical needs of psychiatric patients in the early 80s. And I got very interested in it. And I always kind of had an interest in the brain and things, but I was really dealing with just the medical side of the psychiatric patient, and I got very good at. You'd be amazed how frequently medical problems figure into psychiatric syndromes, and of course, all the sick people were also down in the drug unit. And at that day, this is in the early 80s, there was a guy named Mike Myers that was running the unit back then. He had made a clinical discipline out of drug withdrawal. Mind you, I've been working in a county hospital for years and took care of tons of heroin addicts and alcoholics, and no one ever gave me a training in how to take somebody off these. It was all haphazard and sort of random. And he was like, "This is the protocol you follow." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I got very good at it. So everyone's starting to ask me to see lots of addicts because I'm good at getting them off the drugs. Didn't know anything about addiction, nothing. In fact, but I liked the culture of the unit, and I liked treating and helping addicts. And I remember I'd sit in the nursing station and look through the treatment room and see the 12 steps on the wall and go, "What is that stupid stuff? I'm doing the real thing here. I'm getting people off drugs."
It doesn't work. Yeah.
I was like, "That's so silly. What is that stuff?" These group of guys. And saw a couple patients recover in the late 80s. And I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing. What is this? I want to know more about this." These people were dying a year ago, and now they're amazing. How did that happen? So I started digging into more understanding the treatment. I think I took my first board certification in addiction medicine like 1991. And then Dr. Rutland was the director there at the time, and he asked me to be the assistant director because I was down there all the time. And he goes, "Don't worry, you just, around the holidays, I'll take a week off and you just cover me. You're there all the time anyway, no big deal." 6 months later, he quit, and all of a sudden I move into the position of director of that unit, and had to really work on my training in the field at the time, which was starting to coalesce into a field at the time. And like I said, there was a board certification, and I took that, and it still took me another at least 5 years to get really good at it. and then built a good team. We built a great team there, and it became a significant percentage of my time.
And all the while you were still doing your practice.
I was doing general medicine, but the addiction part, it really expanded in terms of what I was doing every day.
And then, then we jumped on Wheel of Fortune, then took off to stardom.
Wheel of Fortune was 84. We're talking 90s.
Just teasing you.
Yeah.
So everybody's, of course, they're excited that you're on the show today. Of course, they sent in some questions. They want to know if you're sober. Are you a normie?
Person. I'm a normie, as far as I can tell.
So what does a normie mean in the world of drinking?
It means I don't have the genetic potential to lose control. It also, part of that gene is I don't really like these things very much. They don't feel very good to me. I mean, one of the things about being an addict, you have to like how they feel. They have to feel good to you.
Yeah.
And, and don't feel that good or don't feel good at all. So
yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I raised my hand, I laughed because I am recovered, coming up on 24 years if I make it.
Congratulations.
You actually were one of the people that put a kibosh to that during one of our visits for an STD and a blood test. It was great. Yeah. Yeah. When you said, "Hey, got your liver counts back. Let's have a talk." But that's great. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that the normie has 1 or 2 drinks a month, and they're kind of like, eh. And,
well, it's a genetic thing. It's just a thing. It's like everything.
So you're saying that drink and that alcohol use is linked to genetics?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the way we say it is that alcoholism is accounted for on the basis of genetics alone. 60% of alcoholism is accounted for on the basis of genetics alone. The genes aren't destiny, right? You have to have other things usually that activate it, but you have to have the gene. It's a necessary feature to get the disease.
So when you now know that that's a direct correlation, and you were looking at the 12 steps on the wall, and you were looking at the beginning of your career in this specific area, do you still feel that these groups are helpful aside from the genetics to, I guess, get into recovery? A lot of people debunk groups, AA, all these other stuff.
They've been under attack for the last 10 years. And I am telling you, it is the cornerstone of treatment. If you do not use this empiric model that we've been using successfully for decades, you are essentially resisting getting better. Now, John Kelly and Keith Humphreys, the head of addiction medicine at Harvard, and Keith, the head of addiction services in Stanford, I have podcasts with both of them. I think the John Kelly one we just put up again. He just completed a Cochrane analysis, which is the highest caliber meta-analysis available. It's the highest quality medical literature, proving once and for all that that 12-step is as effective or more than any professionally managed service, and it's free. Wow. If we want to argue about healthcare costs, look no further than 12-step as your solution. Stop it. It's free. It's on every corner, and it's scientifically, particularly if abstinence is your goal, scientifically as good or better than any professionally managed services. And oh, did I say it's free?
Yeah, it works for me. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, and I agree with you. It's the behavior you don't want to change, and you don't want to do the work. But got a question for Jessica out here in Los Angeles. A young female says, "What was the interest in you doing Teen Mom? I mean, why help these girls at all?"
Because I knew that would have an impact on teen pregnancy in the country. I just knew it because it fits that model I was telling you: relatable source, narrative, entertainment value. I knew when young people watched that experience, they would go, it's the same thing as Love Life. It's the exact same thing. All these people having adverse experiences, I don't want to do that. And if you look at teen pregnancy in the United States, the quarter that we began airing that show, you see it immediately start to fall. And they've now done 2 academic studies that show that if in communities where there's high viewership of that show, they have the lowest levels of teen pregnancy.
That's incredible. So you're attributed to that about being part of that solution.
I knew it would work. I knew it.
Good work. Yeah, well, that's good. Stacy Roth out of Hillside says, "Hey, where's my mattresses?"
So Susan's in the room here. That you need more mattresses? Yes, I remember the mattresses, but does she need more? We gave him a bunch of them.
I've been in basically collaborating with Stacy. She's actually a new board member on Project Sebastian, and
Oh, well, listen,
it,
Hillsides is the highest quality. If we had 1 million hillsides out there, that we would not have social problems in this country. They're dealing with foster kids, they're dealing with the homeless kids, they're dealing with the at-risk kids, and it's a therapeutic living environment that is second to none.
she says a lot of great stuff for you, and she's hoping that one day she gets to chat with you again, because you basically did a solid for her and her organization. She's always talking about you.
We're always behind Hillsides, always.
All right, I know we're coming to the end of the hour here, and I know you got to go. So just a quick things about for CSG. Some tough questions, maybe not for you, but for some. What's your biggest failure, Drew, that's brought you to clarity today, that made you go, oh, okay?
You know, I harken back to my freshman year in football, those sorts of things. When I was getting my ass handed to me, I was an absolute failure. I was thinking about quitting. And I remember the coach came up to me and he put his face right under my face mask in practice today, and he goes, "Stay with this. You'll be okay. You'll be okay." Or he said something about just hanging in. And because he could sense I was just about out. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And I ended up becoming the captain of the football team by my senior year.
Wow. What was your position?
Defensive end.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really the failure. You said the failure that brought you to clarity, right? So that
right.
Failing moment brought me to clarity.
Oh, nice. Well, that's the moment where we either, fight or flight, right? Best compliment ever received? I mean, the show alone, we could pick from 5 of them, I think. But
I made a difference. That's important to me.
What's that?
When somebody says I made a difference, that's all I need
in your life. That's nice. And let me ask you about something about today. What are you most passionate about today? What's making you get out of bed every day? Let's say what does Dr. Drew like to do? I mean, what's on your mind today? I mean, why do you do it? What's going on?
I'm not sure I can answer that in some sort of easy answer. It's wherever my engine's coming from, it's kind of always been there. Again, making a difference, and there's always stuff to be done. And God knows right now we're in the middle of a big mess, and I'm trying to help people navigate and trying to make a difference where I can. So it just kind of keeps me going. Yeah. I mean, my family keeps me going.
That's right. So you have a lovely wife, Sue.
Back right here. She'll come right around now and say hi to you.
I will.
No, I haven't met Sue yet. I've only talked to her on the phone. But we appreciate Sue letting us have Drew, because I know that she is mission control, as you say, and 3 great children. It seems like you're blessed. You have a great life. And helping others is something we should all strive to do going forward. So, Drew, thank you so much for joining us today on the CSG podcast. Connections with Purpose is sponsored by CSG, the only personal consulting company you'll ever need. Our passion is designed around helping others with over 30 years of experience in a number of different industries. CSG can put you on the most efficient path to success. Our consultants will help you level up quickly, which specializing in CBD, childhood, illness, addiction, recovery areas, just to name a few. Please call us today at 818-724-5987. That's 818-724-5987 to get your free 15-minute consult. Drew, you're awesome.
Bye, Chris. Talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks again for coming out.
All right, man. Got to run. All good?